Hey, happy Batman Day, all you friends, true believers, and newcomers alike. Superfly Comics guy here to celebrate the occasion with you today by taking a look at the Batman by Grant Morrison Omnibus Volume 1, widely regarded as one of the most unique takes on the character, and viewed by many as their favorite run on the character. And I figured it just made sense since last time we took a look at the Batman by Paul Dini Omnibus, which has some ties to this run. You know the drill by now. Cover, spine, contents collected, build quality, a flip through, all that stuff. We will be taking a look at it and discussing it. So if you like the video at any point, you know what to do, and feel free to leave your thoughts below. Before we get started, I just want to apologize for the way I sound. I've been dealing with a sore throat and it's really messing with my voice, but I still wanted to take the time to show this book and talk about it with you guys. I just apologize in advance for any jumpy editing that might happen. Just trust me, if you see that, it's probably just me editing out bits where I'm dying in the background. But anyway, let's start taking a look at this book, shall we? Okay, so the dust jacket to this omnibus. The only one available. There are no variant covers for this omnibus, but you can see here this features the cover to one of the Batman Black Glove issues that are collected in here. That's one of the stories you get in here. Here is the spine for you. Yellow and black. All three volumes of this series have a very similar spine design. This one's yellow, volume 2 is blue, I believe, and volume 3 is red. Here's the back for you. Oh, fantastic artwork. That's something you'll see in this book for sure. But this collects Batman 655 through 658, 663 through 683, and stories from DC Universe 0, 52, 30, and 47. And of course a cover price of 75 US, 99 Canadian. This is one of the earlier omnibuses I picked up sometime last year, I believe, in June. Let's have a look under the dust jacket. There we are. Pretty simple design, simple but elegant. White and black Batman design here, and again all three of the Batman by Grant Morrison volumes have a very similar design to this one on the inside, or under the dust jacket rather. So next up, the inside, the contents. Let's do this. Alrighty, so the Batman by Grant Morrison Omnibus Volume 1. Yeah, I mentioned this is one of the more unique takes on Batman. You can see all the creators involved. And you do get a table of contents for this omnibus, which is nice, and occasional page numbers. They're not persistent throughout the book, but they show up every now and then, so I guess that's kind of okay for DC. But yeah, so this was going on around the same time that Paul Dini's Detective Comics run was going on. And this whole run, Grant Morrison's whole approach to Batman is kind of the opposite of Paul Dini's. Whereas Paul Dini, really, for his Detective Comics run, he wanted to kind of make every issue its own sort of mini story so everybody could kind of pop in whenever they wanted. Grant Morrison took a very different approach. Their unique take on Batman was, Grant Morrison had written Batman before, such as stories like Arkham Asylum, A Serious House on Serious Earth, Batman Gothic. Speaking of which, I need to take a look at those books sometime on the channel. That would be fun. But they'd also written Doom Patrol, Invisibles, the Justice League of America series. So, you know, they were pretty familiar with the DC universe. But Grant Morrison's idea for Batman was to take previous Batman comics, you know, the 40s, 50s, 60s, and combine them all into one canon timeline, as if all of those eras were part of his life. So just imagine, like, you have the serious detective noir Batman from like the 40s, and then he meets Robin, and then his life becomes a lot more cheery and happy, so that explains the whole like 50s, 60s Silver Age campy Batman, and so on and so forth throughout the eras. So he tried to combine all of these timelines into one lifespan for Batman, and that is the Batman that we get in this series. He's gone through all those experiences. So that kind of, it kind of reminds me of the approach that Marvel kind of takes with their characters, because, the Spider-Man from the 60s, from Amazing Fantasy, is still basically the same Spider-Man that we have in present comics. Whereas that's not really the case for DC. The Batman from Detective Comics 27 back in 1939 is not the same Batman that you read about today, just because of all the reboots and crises that DC has had. But anyway, you get kind of three big story arcs in this omnibus. The first one being Batman and Son. And this introduces Bruce's son, Damian Wayne, into the Batman mythos. So if you're a fan of that character, you'll probably be pretty interested in this omnibus. I'll be honest, before I read this series, I hated Damian Wayne. I just found him to be a disrespectful brat. But honestly, I think you're supposed to hate him because he's very dismissive and disrespectful of the Bat family members at first. But as I was reading this, he grew on me over time as he learns to be more and more like his father, rather than like the League of Shadows who raised him. And this is something that is expanded upon throughout the whole course of Grant Morrison's time on Batman. And this is something I wanted to talk about too, The Clown at Midnight, which is a prose story. What? And not only does Grant Morrison recontextualize Batman, but they do so for Joker as well, because I mean, let's face it, if you're going to set the premise that everything from the past is canon, then you're going to have to explain things like all of the wildly different iterations of Joker over the years. So this portion of the story basically explains Grant Morrison's interpretation that the Joker periodically goes through this metamorphosis where he completely reinvents himself and is reborn into almost an entirely new entity, a new version of himself, separate from the previous one. And that kind of explains all of the different versions of him we've seen throughout comics, which is certainly weird, but it's definitely an original piece of lore. And it's tucked away in this obscure little prose story that I feel like a lot of people might be inclined to skip just because of, how dare you remove the graphics from my graphic novel? You're going to make me read? But yeah, we actually get to see one of these transformations happen in this prose story. And look, it is a little bit of a slog to read. I'm not going to lie. I'm not going to hide that, but it's an interesting piece of lore that I don't think you should skip. But anyway, you also have Batman the Black Glove in this omnibus. And the Black Glove is basically this secret society which Batman is fighting against for pretty much this entire volume of this omnibus, so I'm not really going to go into too much detail about them. But you also get the phenomenal Batman R.I.P. story in here. There is a little bit of crossover with Final Crisis, so you may be a little bit confused, but Batman R.I.P. is basically explains Grant Morrison's entire philosophy of Batman, the philosophy that Batman thinks of everything. Grant Morrison's approach is basically, why write heroes to be realistic? Why make heroes realistic when you can explore more about what their world is like instead? Why bring them down to our level when they exist to inspire and bring us up to their level? So that's kind of whole Grant Morrison's whole approach to writing these characters, and certainly Batman. And look, I'm just going to say, if you ever wanted to know just how much Batman can bench press, you're going to want to read Batman R.I.P. As for the art in this book, man, it is incredibly strong. You're getting artists such as Andy Kubert. Here we have Tony S. Daniel. J.H. Williams III is in here. You're getting some phenomenal art. The art is so strong all throughout this book. You won't be disappointed there. What might disappoint you a little bit is the length of this extra section, because it's not very long at all, but it's got some quality stuff. So I guess, I don't know, you can make the argument, quality over quantity. Who am I kidding? I want more extras than this, come on. But what's in here is really cool. You just got a bunch of variant covers, creepy Joker images, and just some fantastic Batman covers. Gotta love it. But yeah, that's it. Short extra section, huh? And as for build quality, this omnibus has 672 pages. There is the eye for you. The pages in this omnibus are great. The binding was pretty tight for me at first when I got it, but after some stretching and reading, the eye loosened up. The binding loosened up after a while. So, you know, not too much gutter loss. I mean, there is a decent amount on some pages, but it certainly lays over better than the Paul Dini omnibus, whereas, you know, early in that book, it was still trying to shut on me. But this is pretty good. But all right, just to wrap up here, if it wasn't clear by now, this is a very enjoyable book, and the art especially is absolutely killer all throughout. But I will say, it's not the best starting point for a new reader for reading Batman, just because of how Morrison likes to refer to older stories from previous Batman comics. I mean, you're going to find moments in here where Morrison pulls on obscure, like, 50s and 60s characters and kind of brings them forth and modernizes them in here. So it can be a little bit confusing, even as a huge Batman fan. People will often say that you have to do some homework before you read this run, and you know, I kind of see where they're coming from. But I still think it's one of those books that gets better with subsequent rereads, just because of how jam-packed it is with just information and references and all that stuff. But anyway, that has been my review of the Batman by Grant Morrison Omnibus Volume 1. Let me know what you thought about the book if you've read it. What are your favorite Morrison stories if you've read any others? Let me know below. But I hope you enjoyed the video today. I hope to catch you in another one real soon. So you have yourself a great day. I've been Superfly Comics Guy, and until next time, guys, keep reading. See ya.